Simon Duncan Seaver.
And the title of our project is
The Church Committee.
Civilian Rights and Congressional Responsibility.
In 1974, Seymour Hersh wrote an article for the New York Times outlining numerous abuses by the CIA, FBI, and NSA against American citizens. In response, a newly created committee chaired by Frank Church set up to uphold Congress's responsibility to oversee the activities of these agencies.
The Church Committee's findings revealed that the intelligence community violated the Charter and infringed upon the rights guaranteed American citizens by the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. To assert Congress's responsibility, the Church Committee created a set of legislative guidelines for the intelligence community.
paramilitary activities have been an important part of our program since the beginning of the Cold War.
Parliamentary activities? You fellows can't go messing around with the parliaments. I won't have it.
Senator, this is a briefing on the paramilitary, not parliamentary activities.
Oh. Well, you fellows stay away from parliaments.
This actually happened. It was this play of writer Locke Johnson describes Congress's motto as, "We don't watch the dog, we don't know what's going on, and furthermore, we don't want to know."
Then, on December 22nd of 1974, a political bombshell was dropped. Seymour Hersh, an investigative reporter for the New York Times, wrote an article about the CIA's actions during the Nixon administration.
Look at this. Huge CIA operation in U.S. against anti-war forces. Apparently, they've been opening our mail, bugging our phones, and intercepting our telegrams.
The nerve! And right after the war, and the Watergate scandal. And they wonder why we don't trust them.
Under pressure from the American public, the Senate passed Resolution 21, creating the Church Committee.
It has been the difficult task of the committee to find a way through the tangled webs of classification and the claims of national security, however valid they may be, to inform the American public of deficiencies in their intelligence services. The discussions which will be held here this morning are an effort to identify publicly certain activities undertaken by the NSA which are of questionable propriety and dubious legality.
The dominant concern of this committee is the intrusion by the federal government into the rights guaranteed Americans by the Constitution.
In previous hearings, we have seen how these rights have been violated by the actions of the NSA, the CIA, and the FBI.
Yes, we have seen segments of our government, in their attitudes and actions, adopt tactics unworthy of a democracy and occasionally reminiscent of totalitarian regimes.
Last week, it will be remembered, a question developed over whether or not the committee would make a public disclosure on one operation that had been conducted in the past by the National Security Agency. The committee then voted on Monday, November 3rd, by a vote of 7-3 that the information would be made public.
The reasons, it seems to me, for the disclosure are clear. The program certainly appears to violate the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which states that
the right of the people to be secure in their persons, papers, houses, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated.
The following statement is the one that has been reviewed by the committee and voted on for disclosure this morning.
Shamrock was the cover name given to a message collection program in which telegraph companies were persuaded to make available, in various ways, their international telegraph traffic to the U.S. government.
For almost 30 years, copies of most international telegrams originating in or forwarded through the United States were sent to the National Security Agency and its predecessor agencies.
We have seen programs initiated with limited goals, such as preventing criminal violence or identifying foreign spies, expand to what witnesses characterize as vacuum cleaners, sweeping in information about the lawful activities of American citizens. This is a theme that runs throughout every aspect of our research.
Telegrams to or from U.S. citizens whose names appeared on the watch lists of the late 60s and early 70s were sent to NSA analysts, and many would be subsequently disseminated to other agencies.
The committee had had many hearings like this one, both televised and executive sessions. The committee's final report was submitted in April of 1976. It consisted of many recommendations of legislative guidelines for the intelligence community.
As one news columnist put it, the only people who came unscathed out of the church report were the chairman and his colleagues.
On February 18, 1975, President Gerald R. Ford signed Executive Order 11905. The purpose of this order was to improve presidential oversight on foreign intelligence activities.
With the creation of the new executive order came the writing of the new Foreign Intelligence Board, whose job was to advise the Director of Central Intelligence on foreign affairs.
After the conclusion of the Church Committee, the need was realized for a permanent committee to oversee the intelligence community, the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, which was to be responsible for oversight of federal intelligence activities.
The Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, sometimes referred to as the Intelligence Committee, is still active today.
In 1978, acting upon the Church Committee's suggestion, the Intelligence Committee passed the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. This act created the FISA Court.
The FISA Court is what regulates whether or not a federal agency can carry out a communications interception, much like the communications that were collected as a part of Operation Shingle. This court is what regulates the intelligence community today.
After the Church Committee, the congressional watchdog was bright-eyed and alert. The civilian population was made aware of the actions of the agencies, and most importantly, the agencies had limits and rules that were enforced.
The remedy is clear. American policy must be made to conform once more to our historic ideals, to conform to the same fundamental belief in freedom and popular government that once made us a beacon of hope for the downtrodden and oppressed throughout the world.